right, so respiratory system. Okay. We look at the mid-sagittal view of the head and neck area. You can see the frontal sinuses.
Frontal sinus.
Whoa, that's really loud. Okay, you can see the nasal cavity. Okay, highlighted areas. The nasal vestibule.
Nasal vestibule.
Okay, how do I stop doing that with that thing? The opening of the pharyngeal tympanic tube. That's the one that equalizes the pressure of your inner ear. Okay, that's when that pops when you yawn. That's when it gives you headaches or that feeling when the plane descends and your ears can't pop. That's the tube that gets blocked. That's what equalizes the pressure. It's a pharyngeal tube. Okay, you see the larynx.
Trachea.
How do I was able to turn that off last time. How did I turn it off? I don't know. I was saying everything. Maybe if I just turn the volume down on this. Let's try it again. Okay. There's your trachea, opening tube for the air. And in front of that is the larynx. Okay. The larynx is the opening, the beginning part of the trachea. Okay. Then you have your pharynx. You have three divisions of the pharynx, which you talked about already. We have the nasal pharynx, which is behind the nasal cavity. We have the oral pharynx, which is behind the oral cavity. And we have the laryngeal pharynx, which is in the larynx area. Okay, so three divisions of the pharynx. You can see each of those three divisions marked. Okay, the large sinus opening is your sphenoid sinus. That's inside the sphenoid bone as it connects to the base of the skull there, base of the brain cavity. Okay, then in front of the sphenoid, in front of the sphenoid sinus, anterior to it, you have the ethmoid air cells. Okay, so that's your sagittal section there. And slide number 2 is the exact same thing as slide number 1. I don't think they changed it. I guess they wanted 13 slides instead of 12. So they duplicated one. All right. Isolating the area, you see the epiglottis. Remember, the epiglottis is a piece of tissue that folds over the opening of the trachea when you swallow. That prevents food and particles from going down the trachea when you're eating. That's the function of the epiglottis. Below the epiglottis, you have you can see the horns of the thyroid cartilage. If you looked on the posterior side, you would see the thyroid cartilage. Okay, those are the horns of it on the side there. You have the cricoid cartilage just below it. And then you get the posterior cricoid adenoid muscles. Okay, on the side there, just below the side of the cricoid cartilage. Okay, and then below that you have the trachea. There's your trachea too. Okay. So far, so good. All right, again, this is the front view of it. You have the thyroid cartilage. See the extent like that. Remember, it's a butterfly shape. Okay. You have your cricoid cartilage below that. On the side of that, you have cricothyroid muscles. You see the difference in the muscle tissue and the cartilage. Okay, that's where your muscles run. You have the tracheal cartilages. Okay, and you have the trachea. Now, what shape are the tracheal cartilages? Anybody remember?
Circular?
They're C-shaped. They don't connect in the back. They're C-shaped cartilage rings that allows flexibility of the cartilage to move. So it's not a complete circle, but it's a C-shaped. So your tracheal cartilages are C-shaped, allow flexibility of the trachea. Oh, I know what I did last time I was from talking. All right, again, you have the epiglottis, which is that fold right here. Right, that folds over the opening of the trachea. You have the thyroid cartilage along the side. You have the adenoid cartilage, more medial towards the trachea, towards the opening. You have the vocal folds and a vocal fold and the vestibular fold. The vestibular fold is up higher in the vestibule, up higher, more closer to the epiglottis. The vocal fold is down lower. That's where your sound waves are produced. But they're both connected to the thyroid cartilage that suspends them. So again, your vocal folds are posterior. Your vestibular fold is anterior. Okay. Side view of it. Again, there's the thyroid cartilage. If you looked at it straight on, it'd be a butterfly shape. It extends around the whole area. Then you got your cricoid cartilage below it. See a little pointer there. And aside that, you have your cricothyroid muscles. You can see the difference in the muscle tissue versus the cartilage. You can see it looks completely different upon dissection. So those are your cricothyroid muscles, your cricoid cartilage, your thyroid cartilage, and then you have the trachea, and you see the tracheal rings all down the trachea also. See each individual rings. Now, who remembers what is called in between those rings? Everybody sees the rings on the trachea. In between those rings is not a gap, but there's certain type. What structure is it? What's the structure that's between each of the C-shaped cartilage rings of the trachea? Those are your annular ligaments. Okay? The annular ligaments suspended between each of the trachea cartilages. Those are your annular ligaments are called. All right, pictures of the lung. If you only had one lung up there, how could you tell what's right or left?
Depending on the lobes.
Perfect.
Yes. Three. The right lobe has 3.
The right lung has 3 lobes.
Yeah.
Yep, you got it. Right lung has 3 lobes in a human, not all animals, only humans. The right lung has 3 lobes, left lung has 2 lobes. Okay. So if you look at the right lung, you have the apex of the right lung. Apex means the tip. Okay. The base is the inferior part of the lung where it tracks against the diaphragm muscles. Okay. You have the superior lobe of the right lung. You have the middle lobe of the right lung. And you have the inferior lobe of the right lung. You have an oblique fissure that separates the inferior lobe. You'll have an oblique fissure on both the right and left lungs. Only the right lung has a horizontal fissure. The horizontal fissure separates the superior lobe from the middle lobe. Okay, and there is no middle lobe in the left lung. There is no horizontal fissure. Okay, so only the right lung, has a horizontal fissure. Same thing on the left lung. You have an apex, which is the tip. You have the superior lobe, you have the inferior lobe, and you have the oblique fissure. It's an oblique fissure on both right and left lungs of the human body. Looking at the lines of the hilum area, where the arteries, veins, bronchi all enter and exit. Okay, so this is your right lung on the left-hand side. Look at the patient. You have your right pulmonary artery. You see those up high. Okay, those are your right pulmonary arteries. Okay, you have the right superior lobar bronchus. That's where the trachea branches off into the lungs. That's your bronchus. Okay, you also have a inferior bronchus, a right inferior bronchus. This is the right superior lobar bronchus. This is the right inferior lobar bronchus. Okay, and then you got your right pulmonary vein closest to the middle. And the right middle lobar bronchus. So you have a right superior, a right middle, and a right inferior lobar bronchus, because there's 3 lobes to the lungs. Each of those enters one of the lobes of the lungs from the primary bronchus, branching off the trachea. On the left side, you got your pulmonary arteries again up top, superior most part. You got your left main bronchus coming into the left lobe. You got the left pulmonary veins, medial aspect. Okay, and you have your left inferior lobar bronchus. Okay, again, you have the bronchus innervate the superior lobe and the inferior lobe, and that's on the left lung. Okay, and this is due to the thorax. Okay, the bone we all know is the clavicle. You can all recognize that one. You have the pectoralis major cut away, so below the pectoralis major is the pectoralis minor, which is that muscle right there. You have your serratus anteriors along the side, which aid in respiration. Those, whoops, I didn't click it. Those are your serratus anterior muscles. You got the external intercostal muscles and the internal intercostal muscles. These are your external intercostals. And then moving more towards the midline, those are your internal intercostal muscles between the ribs. Right? Then you have the cartilages, the costal cartilages, the ribs, as they connect up into the sternum. Okay. You also have the pectoralis major, which sits on top of the pectoralis minor, so you can't see the pectoralis minor unless the pectoralis major is cut away. And you have the sternocleidoid mastoid muscle that attach. Okay. Attached to the mastoid process, clavicle, and the sternum. Going a little deeper in that dissection, you see the right phrenic nerve as it runs down. You see the left phrenic nerve as it runs down. Okay. You have a right lung, you have the left lung. Okay. And you have the diaphragm, which the lungs sit on top of. Okay. You have the heart, which sits in the pericardial sac. And you have the internal thoracic artery running up into the thorax right here, up on the top, on both right and left sides. Okay. And go a little bit deep in the dissection. You have the left vagus nerve. You have the left lung. It points to the eighth. This is the vagus nerve right here as it runs down. You have the left lung. You have the left phrenic nerve that we saw before. You have the heart, precordial sacs cut away, and you got the respiratory diaphragm, the diaphragm. Okay. We have the right phrenic nerve again, and the right lung. Again, you can see on the right lung, if you take it off the highlight, you can see the oblique fissure running through on the side. Okay. And a little deeper in the dissection here again, you can see the right vagus nerve. Run down along towards the heart. You can see the right brachiocephalic vein. Right brachiocephalic vein drains into the superior vena cava, into the right atrium. Okay, as it extends down lower, more posterior, then it becomes the superior vena cava. But up that high, up way above the heart, it is the right brachiocephalic vein. That's your lymphatic system drains back into the circulatory system. You see the right lung again. You see the superior vena cava. Okay. Remember, the superior vena cava is distal or posterior to the right brachiocephalic vein, just above it. You see the right pulmonary artery. Okay, the heart's been removed. So you can see your right pulmonary artery that comes out from the pulmonary trunk here. You can see the right pulmonary veins as the blood comes back into the heart, into the left ventricle, into left atrium, sorry. And you have to see the diaphragm still. You have the left lung. Okay. You have the left vagus nerve. Runs down along the side there. You have the left pulmonary vein. And you see the pulmonary trunk where it branches off from the heart, from the right ventricle. The pulmonary trunk branches off. Okay. And you see how it's going to distribute into the both into the right and left lungs. Okay. You have the left brachiocephalic vein. And you have the aortic arch. Okay. Remember the three branches of the left, three vessels you have to know that come off the aortic arch. The brachiocephalic artery, brachiocephalic trunk, the left subclavian artery, and the left common carotid artery. Those are three arteries that come off the aortic arch. And then you can see the trachea, and you see the trachea. One more layer. And you can see the thyroid cartilage. Okay. Below the thyroid cartilage is the cricoid cartilage. So there's your thyroid cartilage. Again, like a butterfly shape, like the thyroid gland. It's cartilage that protects and covers over the thyroid gland. The cricoid cartilage is below that. Then you can see the trachea exposed. Then you can see the right main bronchus. Again, there's from the trachea, it branches the right main bronchus and the left main bronchus. Okay. And what's the point where it branches? What's that point called? That'll be on your test. Trachea comes down, branches to the right bronchus and the left bronchus. What's that point, that intersection where they branch? I'm not going to point to it on here. I can't draw on this slide. I don't think it just moves it.
Arena?
That's the carina. Perfect. The carina is right. You can see my little mouse there. Right there where the circle is. This highlighted. But right there where that mouse is, that's the carina. That's where the trachea branches in the left and right main bronchus. Perfect. These are your intercostal muscles. You rest your diaphragm again. These are the posterior intercostal arteries and veins that supply the intercostal muscles. These are the nerves, intercostal nerves between the ribs. We talk about the left main bronchus, and these are your subcostal muscles below the ribs. Okay. That's what we got for the respiratory system. Like I said, this was a short lab, so we'll do 725. We'll do 2 of the quizzes. So they do change the answers on them coming up, and we'll see what we've learned. Okay, so let's turn off the highlighter for a second. You can see Lisa. So which lobe of the lung is highlighted?
Middle lobe?
Middle lobe. Is that the right or the left lung?
Right.
Right, because it has a middle lobe. The left lung does not have a middle lobe. It's a superior and inferior. And this is pointing to, okay, we have the pharynx. The pharynx is divided into 3 sections. Which section is this pointing to?
Nasopharynx.
Pointing to the nasal pharynx. Okay, because here's the nasal cavity. One of those pointers going here. This is the oral pharynx. This is the oral cavity right here. Okay, and this is the laryngopharynx. This is by the larynx. Okay, so this one is a nasal pharynx. Okay, what's that big muscle, mushroom shape? Lungs sit on top of.
Diaphragm. Oh,
That's a diaphragm. Okay, you can always tell the diaphragm muscle.
Grayson, I need you to get out.
What's that?
Sorry, I was telling my child to get out.
Okay. We all do that. What muscles are highlighted? Let's turn on the highlights so we can see. So what are those muscles?
The external, or no, my bad. Serratus anterior?
Serratus anterior is more along the side. Those are between the ribs, it looks like. Those should be your internal intercostals, I think. Serratus anterior is more towards this area here. That helps with respiration. Nope. They're innermost intercostals. I'm sorry, instead of the internal intercostals. They're your innermost intercostal muscles. It's kind of hard to tell when they're highlighted there, how deep the dissection is. But those are intercostal muscles. That's what I give you credit for if you have to write on a practicum. All right, there's the lungs. Now, that little area highlighted there. Would that be the right main bronchus?
The left.
Main bronchus. Was that?
The left.
Left main bronchus. Okay. Right inferior. Yeah, the other ones are all right. It has to be this left main bronchus. That's the left lung. Yep. Left main bronchus. Yeah, it's the air tube that comes in through there. If I turn off the highlight, you can see that has the kind of the rings around its open structure. So you can see the difference. Here's the arteries above it, and there's the vein to the side. All right, what structure is highlighted here? Turn the highlight back on. You can see what those are there.
Right pulmonary artery.
Right pulmonary artery. Okay, you know it's on the right side because there's 3 lobes of the lung. You know it's the artery because it's the most superficial towards the top. This is the vein, which is kind of irregular in shape. And this is your bronchi tubes right here where it's ringed. So that's a right pulmonary artery. And what is that pointing to?
Right lung.
Right lung. Perfect. And what is that pointing to?
Right phrenic nerve.
Right phrenic nerve. Yep. Perfect. And those are what vessels are those?
Posterior intercostal arteries and veins.
Posterior intercostal arteries and veins. Yep. Perfect. You guys got this down pat. What's that structure?
The heart.
The heart.
Or deltoid.
Or the deltoid.
Everything's deltoid.
Either one's acceptable. Deltoid's most of your answers. All right. What structure is highlighted here?
Right lung.
Right lung.
Right lung again. And what sinus is that? What opening?
Frontal.
The frontal sinus. That's a frontal bone. Okay, that's a frontal sinus. The sphenoid sinus and the sphenoid bone back in here. So that would be your frontal sinus. Okay. Identify the highlighted structure. That is the.
Left pulmonary vein.
Trying to blow it up so I can see it.
So it comes from the bottom. So
Yeah, because your arteries are right here.
that would be your connecting to the left ventricle. So that would be the
Going to the left atrium.
It's the bottom one, the left pulmonary vein.
Yeah, left pulmonary vein. That connects your left atrium. Your left ventricle sits down here. This brings back oxygenated blood. So that should be your left pulmonary vein because the arteries are right above it. Okay. What structure is highlighted here? Okay. So that's not an artery or vein. That's a tube. You see how it's highlighted there.
right
Middle.
It'd be the right.
middle.
It feeding into the middle.
Yeah, right middle.
I think the right middle lobar bronchus is what it looks like. Going right into the middle there. Yep, perfect. And what structure is highlighted? Let's turn on the highlight again. What's that little flap of tissue that closes over
Epiglottis.
the epiglottis? 16. And what structure is highlighted here?
Larynx. Laryngopharynx.
Laryngopharynx. Remember, the pharynx has three parts: the nasal, the oropharynx, and the laryngopharynx. This is the laryngopharynx because here's your larynx. Larynx is the beginning of the trachea where the epiglottis closes over. So that's your laryngopharynx. And what bronchus serves the highlighted lobe?
Left superior.
Okay, so this would be the left superior lobar bronchus. Everybody see why?
Because it's the top on the left.
You got it. It's the top on the left. It's the best way to put it. And this is the, oh, wait a minute. It's not what I wanted. That's the sphenoid sinus.
But asking for the epithelium.
Right. What's the epithelium lines the highlighted structure? What epithelium lines the sphenoid sinus?
Stratified squamous.
Stratified squamous. Any guesses? Any? Pseudo-stratified columnar. I don't think we talked about that. So
I said that, I just mumbled a little bit, stuttered.
I heard it. At least you guessed.
that's right. And it's pretty close. All right, the highlighted cartilage. is one of how many cartilages located in the larynx?
3.
That's
And
my
the cricoid cartilage, the thyroid cartilage, the
And then the
oral.
tracheal cartilage.
In the larynx. I know 3. I don't know what the other ones are, but 9. I guess there's 9 cartilages. Must be in the.
I see it right here. It says tracheal cartilages, cricoid cartilage, adenoid cartilage, corniculate cartilage, thyroid cartilage, superior horn of thyroid cartilage. That's 6. Oh, yeah. I only see 6 on here.
Yeah.
Cuneiform cartilage.
I only see 6.
I saw 7. If you look up in the top right, you'll say cuneiform.
I'd go with 7 then.
Yeah. So I see in the book anyways. And then
Yeah.
on page 630.
Okay. I'd go with 7. Which of the following best describes the highlighted vessels? What's the highlighted vessel? Let's turn the highlight on.
That would be the inferior vena cava.
It's. I can't tell if that or if that's a bronchus. Let me turn the highlight off. It's hard to tell sometimes in these dissections. That looks like a cartilage ring right here. I'd say that's a bronchial tube.
Okay.
Maybe.
Is the right pulmonary vein an option, or no? I can't see now that it's zoomed in.
Yeah. Or vein. It's hard to tell what they are. Okay, it's a vein. It's the vein or an artery. So that's a vein. Here's your arteries. So this has to be a vein. So that'd be the right pulmonary vein, like Ethan said, right pulmonary vein. So what does the right pulmonary vein do? Vein carries oxygenated blood to the left atrium.
No.
No. Carries oxygenated blood to the right lung.
No.
Arteries that carry or veins that carry deoxygenated blood to the left atrium.
No.
Yeah,
Number 3.
or to the right lung.
There's an arteries that carry. That does not look like an artery to me. That looks like a vein, but
I think it's the vein.
none of those make sense. None of the answers. It looks like a vein because this right here is your artery.
The big one, yeah.
Yeah, this looks like a vein or a bronchi, but they don't have either of those. All right, so let's just take these, do it with kind of eliminate what best we can. Veins that carry oxygenated blood to the left atrium. That would be the right pulmonary vein.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be true.
Okay, so let's do that one.
If that's a vein. Okay. Arteries that carry oxygenated blood. It's not an artery. It's a vein that carries deoxygenated blood. No. So it has to be the first one, right? Glad we agreed. Yeah, it looks like a vein. A vein or a bronchus. It's not an artery. And it carries the pulmonary veins carry oxygenated blood because they receive blood from the lungs back to the left atrium to pump to the ventricle to go to the rest of the body. All right, let's try one more quiz. We'll be done with this lab. One more quiz. Just gets extra because they'll give you different questions. All right, what structure is highlighted? Remember, there's two folds here. There's the one a superior, one anterior. So which one of those is it? Is it the vestibular fold or the vocal fold?
It looks like the vocal fold.
Was the vocal fold superior or inferior?
I thought it was superior.
Okay, so that'd be the vestibular fold right here, and the vocal fold would be superior. Oh, you said vocal fold, sorry. It's the vestibular fold. The vocal fold is lower. Vocal fold is inferior. Vestibular fold is superior. So that'd be your vestibular fold. Again, that's the epiglottis, the thyroid cartilage, and these are the vocal cords. Okay. What muscles are highlighted here?
External intercostals.
So the external intercostal muscles. Perfect. And what nerve is highlighted there?
Left phrenic.
Left phrenic nerve. I'd agree with that. Perfect. And what structure is highlighted there? You can't see what's highlighted. Holy cow.
Middle. No, that's not middle nasal concha.
Well, here's the inferior. Here's the middle.
Superior nasal concha.
If there's a superior nasal concha, I would say that. Yep, there is. Perfect. What muscles are those?
Sternocleidomastoid.
Sternocleidomastoids. Connect to the sternum, connect to the mastoid process and the clavicle. And that is what structure is highlighted there?
Nasal vestibule.
Nasal vestibule. Only one that could be. Yep, nasal vestibule. Opening to the nares. Identify the highlighted structure. And again, let's blow this up so you can take a good look at it. That looks like, that's what we talked about last time too. Turn off the highlights. Let's see if what is.
Isn't that the vein again? The left pulmonary vein?
Again, I would say that looks like a vein. Yep. So it to be the left pulmonary vein. Is that one of our choices? Yep. Perfect. Left pulmonary vein. And what structure is highlighted here?
The inferior nasal concha.
Yeah, because here's your superior, your middle, and your inferior nasal concha. What's the purpose of the nasal concha?
Warm the air.
Warm the air, bring it to body temperature, and do what?
Contaminants, debris and such.
Yep, filter out debris, get the pathogens to be caught in the mucus produced by the concha. Yep, perfect. And what nerve is that?
Phrenic, left phrenic. Or wait, no. Yep. Left phrenic.
Yeah, I'd say left. Yep.
Yeah.
Is
Left
it the
phrenic
internal
nerve.
thoracic though?
What's that?
Internal thoracic artery?
No, that runs this. See this little point right here?
Yeah.
I think that's your internal thoracic. Too small. No, I think these are your internal thoracic arteries right here.
Okay.
I think. This
Well, the
is-
phrenic nerve goes to your diaphragm, and that looks like it's going to the diaphragm and stopping.
Right. This is either the vagus nerve or your internal thoracic. I can't tell. Internal thoracic is usually a little bit thicker. I'm going to dissect it out. But that looks like the, yeah, if I can bring
Can
it
you
down.
turn the highlight off and or no?
Yep. You can see the nerve runs like that. But I think this would be your internal thoracic artery right here. So let's see the left phrenic. Yep. And what structure is highlighted? This right here. So this is the
Right.
You can see a lot better.
Right main bronchus is the only thing it could be, because it's not the trachea. It's not the, could it be the trachea?
Well, it's part of this is the trachea right here. See where my circle is?
Yeah.
This is the trachea. The trachea comes down at the carina. It branches to the right and the left. So this
So
would be
that,
the right main,
that would be the trachea.
yeah, it's part of the trachea, but it's the right main bronchus. Okay, so it's not technically called the trachea. The trachea comes down, and this is the carina right here. So right at the carina, it branches, and then it becomes the right main bronchus and the left main bronchus. Okay, so this would be a right main bronchus. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so it wouldn't, it's part of the trachea, but it's the part that after bifurcates where I'm looking for. All right, this is is the arrow pointing to the right or left lung?
Left.
Go to the left because there's only two lobes. And what lobe is that? So it's the
Inferior.
lobe of the left lung, right?
Yes.
Inferior lobe of left lung. Perfect. And what structure is highlighted? Again, this is your pharynx. You have a nasal pharynx, an oral pharynx, and a pharyngeal pharynx.
Oropharynx.
This is your oral pharynx. Here's your oral cavity right here. So let's turn your highlight on so you can see it again. Yeah, that's right at the back of the oral cavity. That's your oral pharynx. All right, this is the epiglottis here. This is the opening to the trachea. And it says what muscles are highlighted. So what muscles are on the this is the cricothyroid cartilage. I say that'd be the cricothyroid muscles. Everybody agree?
Yep.
Disagree? Oh, it's a posterior cricoid muscles. I should have turned the highlight thing off. Yeah, it's still hard to tell. Okay, so the posterior cricoid muscles. All right, what structure is highlighted there? You can see this tube coming down.
Right vagus nerve.
This sometimes it's hard to see if the highlight. Yeah, it looks like it's a nerve coming down, and the phrenic nerve runs to the side here. So that would be the right vagus nerve that comes down along the digestive tract, along the esophagus right there. So right vagus nerve. Perfect. And which nerves are highlighted?
Nerves.
Which one of the highlight you can see them? There you go. That'll help.
Intercostals.
Right, intercostals. It's the only ones it can be. Those are in between the ribs. What structure is highlighted? Okay.
Vocal fold. No,
It's
that would
either-
be.
It's got to be, it's not the trachea. The trachea is down here.
Not the epiglottis either. So
Epiglottis is right here. So it's either got to be the vestibular fold or vocal fold. The vocal fold is superior. No, the vestibular folds are superior. I'm sorry, the vocal folds are inferior. So it's putting that one right there.
so vestibular. That looks.
Like it's pointing to the superior one. Looks like the superior, looks like the vestibular fold. Perfect. Yep. And the vocal fold is one below it. Okay. It's kind of hard to see, but it has to be the vocal fold or vestibular fold. And the vestibular fold is on the top. The vocal fold is where the voice gets produced underneath that one when the air passes between the two. All right, the highlighted structure separates which two parts of the right lung? So what's the highlighted structure?
The middle lobe, or that's the horizontal. Is that the oblique?
That's the oblique fissure, right? That's the oblique fissure of the right lung. So the oblique fissure of the right lung separates which two parts of the right lung? This is
middle and inferior.
The inferior lobe and the middle lobe. Is that a choice? Yeah, middle and inferior lobes right there. Okay. Perfect. Okay. Okay. When highlighted, muscle contract, it does what? What's the muscle that's being highlighted?
Diaphragm.
Every single that one. It's a big mushroom-shaped diaphragm, big mushroom-shaped muscle. I'm sorry. Okay. So when the diaphragm contracts, it either elevates the ribs, lifts the ribs up, increases the volume of the thorax, decreases the volume of the thorax, or elevates the sternum.
Decreases the volume of the thorax.
Right, because when the diaphragm contracts, it pulls down. So your thoracic cavity increases in size, decreases the pressure because you have more. You increase the volume, air comes in. Okay, so it increases the volume of the thorax. Okay, and this one here, the highlight structure supplies air to which level of the lung. Okay, so you know the highlight structure is the bronchial, right? It's a bronchial tube coming off from the right bronchi, and this supplies air to which? To the right. It's the right because it's the right lung, right? Because it has 3 lobes. So it's gonna be the right superior or the right middle or the right inferior. So here's the superior, here's the middle, here's the inferior. Where is that going to supply air to?
The superior.
Okay, here's the superior section, here's the middle section. So let's go with superior. It's either superior or middle, but it looks like the superior. Yep, perfect. Knew it all the time, right? All right, this structure right here, butterfly shaped. It's cartilaginous tissue. Oh wait, this is so that's not the question though. What organ is directly posterior to the highlighted structure? Okay, first of all, what's that pointing at? That's your thyroid cartilage. Okay, your butterfly shaped cartilage right there. What is directly behind it? If you puncture that area, what would you go into? You go into the pharynx, the trachea, the oral cavity, or the esophagus.
The esophagus or trachea, my bad.
Trachea, right? Because here's the cricothyroid membrane puncture. Right here. Here's your cricothyroid. The membrane's right here. This is what you puncture right here with a scalpel in the ER when your patient's like Ludwig's angina, when the tongue swells up, patient can't breathe, they aspirate something, hot dog, a grape, blocks the trachea. This is where you stick the scalpel. The only thing behind this is the trachea. The esophagus sits behind the trachea. So that protects the trachea. So that would be your trachea, directly behind that.